Hey, 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 welcome to the First Time Homebuyer Workshop with Julie Marion. This is an exciting day because we are now starting a new series with the subject topic of real estate terms and the home buying process. I know that you guys are super smart and you can handle a lot of content so that we can continue to build on these layers of knowledge, adding another golden acorn in your home buying jar. Everything here is usually not repeated in our paid workshop, the First Time Homebuyer Workshop, but today's an exception. This content piece is about the offer process. Now, why am I doing this if I always say that nothing's repeated? Well, the reason why is that you can type into the internet how to buy a house and you will get a list of things to do. AI will give you a list of things to do. However, if you absorb this content that I'm talking about today, you will be 2,000 steps ahead of all other first-time homebuyers. And all I can say is, yahoo! I'm loving that because you are going to win in this process. The offer process is very similar throughout the United States. And if you want to get the exact terms of the process in your state, go to the First-Time Homebuyer Workshop.com/offer process and tell me the state you're thinking of buying in, and I will email you the parameters of your state. The offer. An offer to buy a house is a formal written proposal made by a potential buyer to the seller outlining the terms and conditions under which the buyer is willing to purchase the property. This offer is in writing with details such as the purchase price, the proposed timeline for completing the sale, including any contingencies, any specific conditions or requests from the buyer, such as repairs or appliances included in the sale, and the proposed method of financing. Once the seller receives the offer, they can choose to accept it, reject it, or negotiate different terms through a counteroffer. If both parties reach an agreement and all the terms are agreed upon, the offer becomes a legally binding contract upon acceptance, initiating the process to transfer ownership from the seller to the buyer. Sounds simple, right? Well, let's talk about this because there are a lot of gray areas, and that is what I'm going to be pointing out to you. AI cannot do it, and other people that tell you how to buy a house, well, you need to look at those people specifically. Are they mortgage brokers trying to sell you a house? Are they a real estate agent trying to have you become a warm lead with potentially representing you in your home sale transaction? So here, I want to unpack all of this information so you know what areas and what steps where there's some gray area. And that gray area means negotiation. So let's talk about the components of the offer. The offer is a written document that outlines the terms of the purchase, as I just said. It identifies the buyer and the address of the property and the seller. Within the offer, there is a price and the terms and conditions under which the sale is going to occur and the timeline. So let's unpack this a few more steps. First, there is usually an expiration date of the offer, where the offer is good for a specific amount of time, usually 24 hours as an example. And once the offer expires, the offer is no longer valid. This ensures the seller can move forward with other potential buyers if the offer is not accepted within a reasonable time frame. The offer price. This is the amount of money the buyer is willing to pay for the property. A buyer can offer over asking price, or less than asking. Then you will hear things like good faith money, earnest money, escrow money, deposit money. The purpose of this is to execute the offer. The offer deposit is part of the earnest money, and I say it like this because in certain states, sometimes you have the offer money and then you go right into home inspection, and then there is a second written contract and a second deposit. In other states, there's just one deposit made with the offer. No matter what, these monies are placed in an escrow account, typically held by a listing brokerage or an attorney, and it is held as part of the monies that the buyer uses to purchase the house. If there is a dispute, these monies stay in the escrow account until a written resolution is negotiated, or in some cases, the judge will decide what the resolution is. This deposit also is what secures the executed offer between the buyer and seller. If the seller's agent does not receive the deposit money, The offer is not a valid contract, so it's very important to have your checkbook ready to go when you want to make an offer. And here's a tip. Your lender will want copy of the deposit check or checks so that they can see how much you put into the escrow account, because as I just said, that money goes towards the purchase of your house. It's not typical to wire money. However, there is a new electronic function many brokerages are adopting, similar to our electronic cash transfers, that has recently become more commonplace. Time will tell if this will work out. I've had a couple of transactions like this at the end of my career, and it's very convenient. Some buyers have not liked it because they think the company running it just asks for too much personal information. I think that's a safety mechanism, but I'm no computer whiz, so we'll see how this really works out. How much money do I need to place in escrow, you ask? Well, I'm glad you did. The answer is there is not a hard and fast amount. It is your choice as the buyer. Agents will tell you, oh, the more you put down, the better. But you need to understand what the risks are here, and we will get to that soon. Most agents will tell you what the going rate is, but there is not a law or a rule. When you interview your agent, depending upon the type of agent you want, this is a great question to ask. The deposit money is also typically a small percentage of the offer price to demonstrate the seriousness of the buyer about purchasing the property. It's always substantially less than your down payment for your bank loan. Part of the offer includes standard home inspection language. It is your choice as a buyer as to whether or not you exercise this option. Should you choose to do this, typically there's a number of days in which the inspection can take place. This is a gray area. Additionally, under federal law, if the house was built prior to 1978, you have the right to test the house for lead paint. This inspection contingency allows the buyer to have the property inspected by a professional home inspector or anyone you want. It could be your Aunt Sally. If you hire a professional home inspector, you will need to pay them, just like this whole process is a service-based business. And there are many home inspectors to choose from. You will need to do your due diligence on this step. I'm going to leave that here because there's a lot to talk about under home inspection. However, you can ask the seller as part of the process to inspect the property or not. You are responsible for paying for any of the fees associated with the inspection and for any tests. And typically, professional inspectors will give you a written report with photos. And in some states, not all inspectors are providing videos, but some are. If issues are discovered during the inspection, the buyer may negotiate repairs with the seller and request a reduction in the sales price, or just accept the house as is, or withdraw the offer altogether. This is a gray area. In some states, within the home inspection area of the offer process, there are contingencies, such as hot water tanks need to be fastened correctly to a wall, on-site sewage or septic tank reports need to be presented. Smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors need to pass a fire inspection. There needs to be earthquake information, lead paint reports, water issues, well information, water quality issues, termite inspections, and many, many health and safety issues that are addressed. So many. So there are specific categories that are quote unquote disclosed to you. And in my experience, it's thrown at you as the buyer when your emotions are running high and there's just so much to know in this area. Professionals have their PhD in just one small area of this home inspection category and have dedicated their whole lives to just one subject topic. And sometimes it's a fraction of a topic. So it's nothing to take lightly. If you have not watched the movie Erin Brockovich, watch it, and it will come to light. Or remember back a few summers ago to the Flint, Michigan fiasco with lead being in drinking water. You want you and yourself and anyone else or any person that you live with to be safe and healthy. This section of the offer process covers these types of topics. 80% of buyers throughout all income levels get a mortgage. So within the standard offer form, there's a financing contingency. In this section of the offer, you explain to the seller what the terms of the financing that you will be applying for and how much down payment you will be giving. Or as another way to say it is, how much the bank will be financing. The terms of your loan, typically the interest rate, and the date in which you will apply formally for the loan. This clause specifies that if the buyer is unable to secure financing within a specific time frame, the offer becomes void and any earnest deposit money needs to be returned to the buyer. Within the financing contingency, there is also an appraisal contingency. Sometimes, if the form is silent in some states, the agent will write this into the offer and explain to the seller what will happen should the property not appraise. I mentioned this in another blog post I wrote, something called an appraisal gap. The appraisal gap is the difference between the appraised value and the property price. In hot markets, sometimes buyers waive the appraisal contingency, meaning if the house appraises for less than the purchase price, then the buyers will bring cash to make up the difference between the appraisal and the purchase price. Now, this is a gray area. Other buyers say, no way, I'm not covering that gap, or something in between. This is all a negotiation. I would suggest this is where you need to decide as a buyer what you will do. What is your home buying mantra? And this happens when you are in the process of being educated. This is your choice as to how you will handle this financial obligation. Just like everything in life, there are many reasons to pay the appraisal gap, and there are many reasons not to pay the appraisal gap. However, this contingency states that the sale is contingent upon the property's appraisal meeting or exceeding the agreed on purchase price. If the property appraises for less than the offer price, you can also, as the buyer, renegotiate with the seller or withdraw the offer. This is a gray area. In each standard form, there are also additional terms, and additional terms are personal contingencies and special requests. Depending upon the circumstances, the offer may include additional contingencies such as repairs to be completed before closing, or the inclusion of certain appliances or furniture or specific terms related to the sale. The closing date. The offer specifies the proposed closing date, which is the date when the sale is finalized, and ownership of the property is transferred from the seller to the buyer. On that day, once the deed is recorded, you as the buyer own the property, and you can move in, go clean the house, do whatever you want, do as you wish. The home is now yours. Those are the essential parts of the offer process, and you can see they're very date specific and milestone specific. So what happens if you miss a date, you ask? Well, of course, things happen, right? The most important part is to know when the deadlines are. Put it on your master calendar, on your phone, get reminders, and you also need to have the essential people you need to notify, because if you need to, drum roll here, apply for an extension, yes, that's the magic tool, a written extension, it needs to be in writing and you need to sign it, and the seller must agree to the extension. And if they do not, then the transaction could be dead. Or you need to formally withdraw so you can get your earnest money back. The key is to give enough notice, not on a Friday at 4:30 when people are going home for the day or maybe even going away for the weekend. But an extension is pretty common and everyone has to agree. One time I had this transaction, it was around the holidays, and the buyer agent had the mortgage commitment due right around Thanksgiving. And I just knew they weren't going to get it done. And sure enough, the bank didn't. Everyone was scrambling around at the last minute to get the extension signed. The sellers weren't too happy about it because it pushed out the closing date. But my sellers were wonderful, and I say this because they had granted the extension, and then fast forward a couple of weeks, and one of the seller's mothers passed away, which, if you've ever had anyone die in your family, death delays things by several days. But in this situation, it was even worse because the seller had to go where her mother was, which was not in the United States, all the while that they were packing up and ready to move. We asked the buyers for an extension and they flat out said no. So my point is, just because you have a good reason, even a humanitarian reason, sometimes people say no. When you draft your offer, make sure that you, the bank, and the rest of your team can meet the deadlines. Now, the delineation I just went through gives you a good idea of the entire offer process. There are a few more steps to get to closing, but let's have this just permeate into your head. And if you have any questions, let me know. I am here to help you, Mr. and Mrs. CEO of your home buying journey. That's this 15 minutes of home buying knowledge. Just another acorn for you to put in your home buying jar. Next time, we're going to talk about disclosures, what they are, what they mean, and when they are given to you. Talk about overwhelm. Okay, homework. Yes, there's always homework. I want you to talk with Dr. Internet in the areas where you think you might want to live and start looking for environmental issues around those areas. Notice them, jot them down, make a cheat sheet so you know what you really need to research before you embark on the home buying process. I gave you earlier a website, thefirsthomehomebuyerworkshop.com, where you can take our free mini class, and I hope you do, because it will enlighten you and empower you as to what everyone is going to be doing for you. Also, I know not everyone likes to print out paper in this digital age, but it will really make your life so much simpler if you start a notebook and have all your resources available to you. I'm your real estate broker in your back pocket, so please use this information I'm giving you. Nothing will make me more happy than to know that when you do buy a house, that you absolutely have no buyer's remorse. Until next time, from the team at the First Time Home Buyer Workshop with Julie Marion, bye for now.